Still Snoop Dogg and D.I.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Villanova Tip Time, and I'm your host, Chris Notaro. Today is Thursday, March 11th. We have our first postseason game of the year of this 2020 to 2021 season. So today, as you all well know, Villanova is going to be taking on Georgetown at the top of the hour in the quarterfinals of the famed Big East tournament live from Madison Square Garden. And boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about here today before this tips off. Again, that's going to be at noon Eastern Time on Fox Sports 1. Today's topic list, we're going to talk a little bit about the season awards and kind of where our guys fell in there. We're going to go around the top of college basketball, like always, a little bit later on that segment as we're into conference tournament week. We're going to get into a little bit of tourney watch for the big dance coming up, Selection Sunday coming up on Sunday, and the big dance starting next week. We'll revisit the Providence game because we must. We'll check in with where we're at overall with the team. We'll see where we're at with the Big East tournament so far. There were 3 awesome games yesterday. And then finally, we'll reintroduce this Georgetown team and what to watch for in today's game. So, like I said, leading off, we're going to start with the season awards. So I think we have to start first and foremost with Big East Player of the Year. There have been times in the past, and especially since the Big East realignment, where we have seen a split Player of the Year. You saw it actually with Ryan Arcidiacono getting the split with Chris Dunn years ago, sort of in the middle of the 2010s decade, where nobody really thought that he was gonna, Arch was actually gonna get in there for that. Instead of having 2 Players of the Year this year, the Big East decided to say, hold my beer, and go for 3 Big East Players of the Year, and 2 of them were our guys. So the hats off to the non-Villanova player, and that was Sandro Mamukelashvili from Seton Hall, who also reeled in all Big East honor, first team all Big East honors. But our 2 Villanova Big East co-Players of the Year were Colin Gillespie and Jeremiah Robinson Earl. This doesn't necessarily come as a shock, other than the Big East opted to go with a 3-way tie for Player of the Year. I guess they're saying a weird year. We're going to kind of throw this toss-up and say that all guys are deserving. Awesome that we, as the Nova Nation, have 2 out of those 3 players. Pretty fantastic. Yes, as I'm seeing, Rob, 3-way split is indeed insanity. I don't know that I'd quite go so far as to call it a terrible decision. An interesting one to say the least. I'm just grateful that we got 2 out of the 3. And then to round out the All Big East first team, you have Colin Gillespie, Jeremiah Robinson Earl again on that first team All Big East, along with Sandro Mamukelashvili, as we just said. You also on that first team have James Bouknight from UConn. UConn looking very hot lately. You have Marcus Zagorowski from Creighton, who was sort of a consensus preseason Player of the Year pick. Underperformed that quite a bit, but still had a really strong season. Landed himself on the first team All Big East. And then Julian Champagny from St. John's, rounding out the All Big East first team. And then we also have to shout out our guy Jermaine Samuels for getting on the honorable mention list for All Big East. Not quite making first or second team, but making that honorable mention list is indeed worth just that, an honorable mention. So kudos to him and thanks to him for all of his contributions this year, and including, stepping up and having to be the guy at times, as we saw against Providence on Saturday, and as we're probably going to expect to see a little bit here in this Big East tournament with some injury concerns. Rounding out our season awards, we also have to call out Jeremiah Robinson Earl for notching a place on the third team All-American list. A fantastic achievement for him in his sophomore year. All signs point to him likely going to the next level, going into the NBA after this season. But that's a remarkable achievement, remarkable way for him to cap off his college career with not only co-Big East Player of the Year, all Big East first team, and then landing on that third team All-American list. So again, we like always, we want to go around the top of college basketball like we normally do. A little bit lighter of the last couple days since we saw you last, as the regular season was winding down. We were getting into more of the mid-major conference tournaments, many of which have now completed. The couple things we want to point out. Number one, Baylor had the absolute gauntlet thrown down in front of them last week by the Big 12 in rescheduling and trying to accommodate from some COVID postponements and cancellations. And Baylor was equal to the task. In a 6-day stretch, they won at number 6 West Virginia, home against number 17 Oklahoma State, and then again home against number 18 Texas Tech. Again, that was in a 6-day span. That's remarkable, especially for a team who was coming off of a long COVID pause and had sputtered in one of their first 2 games or both of their first 2 games out of that COVID pause, that long COVID pause. Baylor's regaining that top of the top creme de la creme form at the right time as they look to stay hot in the Big 12 tournament. Unranked and previously left for dead Michigan State beat number 2 Michigan on Sunday for its 3rd top 5 win in 2 weeks, having earlier beaten number 5 Illinois and number 4 Ohio State in back-to-back games in a little less than 2 weeks ago. So you see teams like Michigan State, you see teams like Duke sort of playing their way back in, where a month ago a lot of folks were considering these teams just to be clean out. Now, Duke had a shot to win their way back into the tournament field with a game against number 15th ranked Florida State today, but it was just announced about an hour ago that they are out with a COVID positive, which is Duke's first amongst that Tier 1 group, which would be players and coaches. And it couldn't come at a worse time for them as they're trying to play their way back into the tournament field. So we'll see what happens, leaving it up to the fate of the selection committee, but it is likely most bracketologists have them on the outside looking in at this point. So, as we get into Tourney Watch and just taking an eye on the clock, we've got a lot to cover. We want to make sure we talk plenty about Nova and what we saw in the Providence game and what you can expect from Georgetown today. But before we get there, like we've been doing recently, we want to do a little bit of Tourney Watch. And, we always look first and foremost to Joe Lunardi from ESPN and his kind of top 4 seed lines. And right now, Nova's not looking too great. Nova's the second to last team on the 4 line, which makes today very important for Cats fans to make sure that they preserve at least a 4 seed in the tournament. I think a month ago, with this team and basically being a top 5 team all year, you'd be shocked if I told you that they might end up heading into the tournament as a 5 seed, which of course none of us want. If you look at all the different bracketologists out there, you go beyond just Joe Lunardi and ESPN. You do have you'll consistently see Villanova still on that 3 line. So you'll see them somewhere between a 3 and a 4 right now. But today's game is really important. Getting to the semifinals, at least of the Big East tournament, is going to be really, really important if we want to go in as a 4 seed and if we want to preserve our hopes as possibly going in as a 3 seed. Otherwise, around the top 4, the top 4 seeds, people are feeling like they're pretty locked in with Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan, and Illinois. Although, with Michigan and Illinois there on the 1 seed line, Ohio State and Iowa there on the 2 seed line, could the Big Ten tournament get a little crazy and do some mashing up in the 1 to 2 seeds? Maybe, maybe not. Michigan and Illinois seem like they might be far enough out ahead that if they can at least get into the the later round, the semifinal round of the Big Ten tournament, that they should be able to stay where they are. But if you look at today's action across the board, teams that you have ahead of Nova for a 3 seed, West Virginia, Texas, and Kansas, all slated to play today. So today's going to be a big day with, again, West Virginia, Texas, Kansas on that 3 seed line, and Oklahoma State currently ranked ahead of Nova on that 4 seed line, all playing today. So big day for the Cats. So we will switch gears now, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Providence game on Saturday. So the first things first, let's get the ugly business out of the way. The first half woes were real. And how many times have we said this year that, quote, this is the worst first half of the year, or, quote, this was the worst half of the season? I do feel like I found myself saying that or feeling that way about more times than I would care to count in a single season, and it almost always came in the first half. I think just every time it did come in a first half. So the first half was pretty gross. You go back to that, quote, shoot 'em up, sleep in the streets mentality of this Coach Jay Wright-led Villanova program, a mantra that the team has adopted for many years now. And that shoot 'em up, sleep in the streets mentality, plus always getting the best out of a mediocre or worse opponent because it's Villanova, can equal a recipe for disaster. And that's exactly what we saw play out in the first half. In general, throw in a Justin Moore ankle injury that rendered him out for the rest of the game. We'll talk about Justin Moore in a second, as many of us were definitely surprised to see that he was dressed in pregame for warmups today. A little bit of mental chess coming from Coach Wright and the Cats there. Have to love it. But before we digress into that, in addition to that injury, going completely ice cold and not really scoring points, not really playing great defense in the first half, really cost the Cats in this one. And then kind of moving on into the second half, I think it's a tale of two halves. And the takeaways should be optimistic mostly coming out of that Providence game where this team was stunned after Justin Moore went down. They were just stunned. In the second half, the team fought like hell. The intensity they brought was so refreshing. It was so uplifting, where I think many of us, myself included, were definitely starting to fade into this kind of all is lost mentality for the rest of the season, given Colin Gillespie's injury, given Justin Moore's injury, which didn't look great on tape and was out for the rest of the game. But the intensity this team brought in the second half to both stage a comeback and sustain that comeback almost all the way was really amazing. So we have to give honorable mention to Chris Arcidiacono, who many of you, myself included, cast as nothing more than a walk-on caliber player, but he was clearly the defensive spark plug that enabled the team to really start this comeback when they were down 17 to 19 points and continue to sustain a near total comeback. Although he didn't necessarily look great with the ball, shooting the ball, his handle and his command of the offense when he was, a point guard on offense, other than shooting, was really good looking. And then his defense was just a total spark plug for the team in the second half. It sounds a little bit foolish to say that a team that had come back from down 19 ended up giving away a game in the end, but that's kind of what happened here. Nova gave this one away really just on missed free throws alone. So you don't like that loss, especially after Providence then turns around and loses to DePaul yesterday. It's a bad loss for Nova, but I think in the end the committee will probably take a little bit of pity on Villanova that this wasn't quite the Villanova team that you're going to see in the tournament, especially with Justin Moore showing up for warm-ups today. So we can quickly, have the memory of an elephant and quickly move on from that one, take the positive, forget the rest, and move on. Some notables from that box score. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl had another double-double, so you really can't knock the guy. But it was clear, that he had a tough game. He lacked any sort of a touch shot. He really was struggling. He was missing a lot of easy ones. I think his overall field goal shooting was 5 for 15, which honestly just can't happen the rest of the way. You can't see a game like that from him and expect that Nova's going to pull it out, given the caliber of teams that they're going to be playing from here on out. Right? Today they're playing Georgetown, who's played really well of late. Tomorrow they're going to play either Seton Hall or St. John's, that's looking to play their way into the tournament. And then if they were so lucky to win today and win tomorrow, then they're going to get a Big East championship game against likely a Creighton or a UConn, who have plenty to prove on their own. And then if you get into the NCAA tournament as a 3 or a 4 seed, you're on upset watch coming in with an injury. So it's really important that Jeremiah Robinson-Earl kind of buckle down on these touch shots, be a little bit more focused, a little less of a space cadet. Whereas in the Providence game, he was spacey at times. He missed a wide open dunk, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally, with the last thing I'll say about the Providence game was Jermaine Samuels had to become, the guy, that dude, when it was clear that Nova was in trouble. And he was able to. He stepped it up. He notched 21 points and 8 boards, and he nearly got the team there. So where does that leave us? Like I said, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl has to be better on these touch shots in the short and medium range. Can't have him going 5 for 15 from the field. As Coach Wright has praised him, he does all the little things. He doesn't have bad defensive games. So if we can just see him tighten up on those, sluggish offensive performances that he's kind of been a little inconsistent with over the last month, I feel really good about this team's chances in this Big East tournament. Second, I would point out Caleb Daniels, who we on this show have loved since early in the season. Can't stink as bad as he's stunk in recent games. He's had a number of games where his stat line, his field goal shooting is 1 of 8, 1 of 9, 1 of 7. He's taking so many deep shots, either deep 2s or 3s, and he's missing so many of them. You really can't have that happen. So you'd like to see, especially if he's going to maintain the shoot 'em up, sleep in the streets mentality and sort of fight through it when he's having these clear confidence issues, you'd like to see him working for better or easier shots to try and build some of that confidence back. I think next I would point out that Brandon Slater should be starting. He should have been starting in the Providence game. He played, I think, most of the second. He played starters minutes once it was clear that he should have been, starting over Cole Swider, and Cole Swider wasn't having a good game. But either way, Brandon Slater should be starting for this team, especially with not only Gillespie out, but Moore at the very least not starting today. But again, I'm sort of saving the Justin Moore topic for a little bit down the road. You're also going to get a real opportunity to evaluate Brian Anton's just ability to impact this team. He's going to get more minutes. He's going to get more burn. And so for Nova Twitter, that's been quick to blow the Brian Anton whistle anytime he gets in a game, you're going to get plenty of that. And you got to see whether or not he's going to be able to capitalize on those minutes and score some points and add to the rotation offensively. And then finally, like I already said, and I will say again before this program ends, I almost guarantee it, Jermaine Samuels has got to be the guy. I think, as much as Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, third-team All-American, Big East co-player of the year, that he's going to have to step it up down low, but he's going to need help. And whereas there was sort of a number of guys that could step up and be the number 2 guy in a given game, all signs point to Jermaine Samuels there really having to step up and be sort of that combo guard, small forward, contributing factor, not leaving Jeremiah Robinson-Earl kind of alone on his island. So we're down to the last 4 minutes here before tip-off. And just real quick on what we saw yesterday in the Big East tournament, Georgetown rolled over Marquette. We're going to see them today. Butler stormed back from being down big, I think 19 points, to beat Xavier in overtime, which deals another major blow to Xavier's bubble hopes. And then, like I said earlier, DePaul pulled away from Providence in the second half, which looks horrible for Nova having just lost that game to Providence a few days ago. So Georgetown got here by dominating Marquette yesterday. Qudus Wahab had 19 points and 9 boards. Javon Blair had 20 points. However, the team only shot 39% from overall field goals and 21% from 3. So it was kind of more of a rock fight against the Marquette team who just kind of played worse than bad rather than a necessarily strong performance from Georgetown. Other than Wahab and Blair, it was a pretty poor shooting day for the rest of the team. The Cats did beat Georgetown in both meetings so far this year, but neither were easy despite some friendly-looking box scores, especially in that first one, where we were down huge in the first half, but ended up winning the game by like 16 points. As you know, it's hard to beat any team 3 times in a season. It's hard to beat any team twice in the same season, let alone 3 times, so you have to expect today to be a real fight, no matter what the Nova injury situation would have been. And despite that 10-12 record coming in, Georgetown has played much better in the second half of the season. They've won 5 of their last 7, including yesterday, with both losses coming against UConn. So they're definitely playing better, and they're thinking if they can get past Nova today, maybe do they get into bid stealing mode. So there's a ton on the line here for Georgetown. Georgetown, the hallmark of this team is they're able to play big with Qudus Wahab and Jamarco Pickett kind of guarding that interior and then posing interior threats on the offensive side. You have 4 players averaging double figures, including Javon Blair with 16, Pickett with 12.5 per game, Wahab with 12.5 per game, but seemingly strengthening as a major factor every day, and then Chudier Bile with 10 per game of his own. So what are we watching for today? A couple things. Number one, which shout out to my guys at the Full 40. They tweeted about, the importance of containing Wahab. We all know that's a huge factor in this game. Could we possibly see Dixon at the 5 and Jeremiah Robinson-Earl at the 4 to cause some matchup fits? Dixon in there to help with that strong big man presence from Georgetown, and Jeremiah Robinson-Earl at the 4 because he can versatilely sort of bounce around to different positions and slide between, really the 1 and the 4. I don't know that he's never ever necessarily going to play that pure play 1, pure play point guard, but obviously he's a much more versatile player and you want him to be able to kind of pop in, pop out. But the real key here is, can Nova reasonably contain Qudus Wahab, who had a monster game against us last time, and may or may not be the X factor today. So like I said earlier, one of the things I'm looking for is better control, better focus from Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, especially on touch shots around the rim. He missed a lot of those bunnies, a lot of those shots that we're accustomed to seeing going in from him. Saturday and maybe what just was a poor outing for him in a game where he felt a lot of pressure to step up because Colin had just gone down. Hopefully he got that out of his system, and you look for him to have better touch today. You hope to see Brandon Slater in an elevated role. I haven't seen the starting lineups come out yet, but they weren't up by the time I started the show, but I have to hope he's in it. And then, like I've said earlier, and I've said a couple times, and I'll say again, can Jermaine be the guy? I want Jermaine Samuels to be the guy that steps up alongside Jeremiah Robinson Earl and just kind of wills this team to a victory, because he absolutely has the talent and the leadership to be that guy. And finally, as always, with a Coach Wright-led team, it's all going to come down to shoot 'em up, sleep in the streets. Can Nova shoot 'em up today? Can they see the shots fall? If so, I think we're in for hopefully a fairly pleasant noon tip-off, and if not, we're in for another roller coaster ride. Either way, we all love this Cats team. We love what we've seen from them. We love the grit and determination that we've seen through adversity recently, and we hope that can continue into the Big East tournament here as we officially ramp up the postseason. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for your Villanova Wildcats in the 2021 Big East Tournament live from Madison Square Garden. Flip your TVs over to Fox Sports 1. We hope to see you tomorrow. And ladies and gentlemen, it's tip time.